Welcome back, everyone, to another video in my character guide series, the place where I dive into general information, lore, and backstory for my original characters. As always, the full wiki containing all of these notes is linked on my website, which you can find in my bio. That's also where you'll be able to view the complete artworks in full detail. Today, we'll be taking a closer look at my original character, kasdeya nachthex, the high priestess of the Temple of Divinity, a devoted vessel of her goddess, and a powerful mage with the essence of a shadowed demon. In a world where light and divinity once reigned supreme, there exists a being born not of warmth, but of shadow. Her name is kasdeya nachthex, High Priestess, Shadow Demon, survivor of a fallen kingdom. Standing at 6 feet tall, with deathly pale skin, cyan eyes, and midnight ash blue hair, kasdeya possesses a beauty that is as unnatural as it is mesmerizing. Even in her human form, something about her presence feels wrong, eerie, otherworldly. And in her true form, she is something far more terrifying, an entity made entirely of shadow, with glowing white eyes, a curved horn, and a spiked tail. Intangible, untouchable, almost impossible to truly harm. But her appearance is only the surface of a far deeper contradiction. Kasdeya is a being raised in light, yet born of darkness. Born in the fallen kingdom of Abysskarn, she was the daughter of Viscount Leofric nachthex and Verlisa nachthex, two figures tied to nobility, corruption, and quiet cruelty. Her father, a cold and calculating noble, saw emotion as weakness. Her mother, a former slave, was driven into madness by years of suffering and the corruption that festered within her during pregnancy. Before kasdeya could even remember their faces, her homeland was purged and burned to ash under the orders of Empress Moon Tikona, who sought to erase the instability and corruption festering within Abysskarn. And yet, from the ruins, one infant survived. Kasdeya, unable to raise the child herself, the Empress delivered the newborn to the sacred Temple of Divinity, where kasdeya was raised as a nun completely unaware of her lineage, her parents' fate, or the cursed wasteland that once bore her name. But no amount of holy teaching could erase what she truly was. As a shadow demon, kasdeya never developed emotional attachment the way others did. She is emotionally detached, analytical, and deeply self-reliant, traits shaped both by her nature and by a life devoid of nurturing affection. To her, emotion is inefficiency, attachment is vulnerability, and people are often little more than variables in an experiment. Despite her sacred upbringing, she possesses a quiet superiority complex, instinctively viewing others as intellectually and existentially beneath her. This is not loud arrogance, but a calm, clinical certainty. Her mind is her greatest weapon. Kasdeya approaches life, death, and even morality through cold intellectualism. She studies boundaries rather than respecting them, tests limits rather than fearing them, and where others see horror, she sees discovery. This is where her morbid curiosity truly takes form. During the Second War against the Angels, kasdeya found her calling not as a soldier, but as a researcher of the forbiddens. She hunted angels not out of hatred, but fascination. She dissected their biology, consumed their flesh, extracted divine essence from their remains. To her, angelic bodies were not sacred. They were resources. Through shadow manipulation, corpse grafting, divine consumption, dark alchemy, and form shifting, she transformed battlefields into laboratories. She toys with opponents, not in rage, but in sport, prolonging fights to observe reactions, weaknesses, and magical responses. Cruelty in her mind is not cruelty. It is simply experimentation. Yet, for all her detachment, her life was not without connection. A wandering adventurer named Beckett Granger once entered her temple, cursed with an unbreakable magical bracer. Initially hostile, kasdeya became intrigued by him, leading to a soul-binding contract that allowed her to experiment on him in exchange for attempting to remove his
What
curse.
began
As curiosity evolved into something far more complex. Their relationship was intense, primal, and deeply unconventional. Against her own nature, kasdeya allowed him to remain by her side. Over time, he became the one person capable of reading the faintest flickers of emotion behind her otherwise impassive demeanor. And eventually, he became her husband. Their union resulted in the birth of their daughter, Roxana Lively, warm soul who stood in stark contrast to her mother's cold nature. But peace was never meant to last. During the chaos of angelic conflict, Beckett died protecting his family, despite kasdeya's warnings. His death shattered something within her that she refuses to acknowledge even to this day. Roxanne remained the only tether to the one person kasdeya had ever truly cared for. Years later, kasdeya returned to her empire and entered a new chapter alongside Adonis Takona, her current husband, with whom she bore a second daughter, Nora. Unlike Roxanne, Nora inherited the darker echoes of kasdeya's lineage, volatile, manipulative, and touched by the lingering insanity curse of their bloodline. Where Roxanne represents what kasdeya could have loved, Nora represents what she truly is. Psychologically, kasdeya is highly intelligent, strategic, and independent to an extreme. She avoids attachment, rarely shows empathy, and often treats others as tools rather than companions. She remains calm in chaos, easily frustrated by emotional behavior, and relentlessly drawn toward forbidden knowledge regardless of consequence. She is not driven by morality, nor by faith, despite her title as High Priestess. In truth, kasdeya is an atheist who believes only in knowledge, power, and observable truth. Her core contradiction defines her existence. Disciplined yet indulgent, refined yet sadistic, sacred in title yet demonic in nature. Kasdeya Nachthex is not a villain in her own mind. She is a scholar of the macabre, an observer of life and death, a being shaped by trauma she barely acknowledges, and a legacy soaked in shadow she never chose, yet fully embodies. Cold, curious, untouchable, a child of light's sanctuary, and darkness's true heir. That's all for today's video. In the next one, I'll be going over another one of my characters, so stay tuned. Thank you all so much for watching and supporting my work.